are you? Oh my goodness, I am so excited about today's show because not only is the person coming on a friend of mine, but she's also been in business for 25 years and she has blown it up quietly, which is why we are calling today's show Hush Money. Before I get to my guest, of course, I am Dawn Marie Morris with the World Class Training Institute. The World Class Training Institute, of course, exists to maximize human capital, which is an organization's greatest resource. And we do that through the delivery of leadership and professional development training programs. As an outgrowth of that, we have the Leaders Lounge, which is our opportunity to not only share with you leadership nuggets to help you grow and develop as a leader, but also for occasions like today where we talk to amazing people who are in leadership about their journey, about the challenges they've had, about the successes that they've had, and any other important pieces that they can share with you so that you can be your absolute best as well. So before we bring on my amazing guest, I do want to also, of course, share with you our latest book, which is Unpacking Agape, the 7 Languages of Intentional Leadership. Everything that you need to know about how to behave as a 3-dimensional leader is found in this book. And you can pick it up at worldclasstraining.net/agape. That's worldclasstraining.net/agape, and we'll leave that scrolling across the bottom of the screen for you as well, so you can go and grab that immediately. Now, I am about to bring on our guest. Our guest is Tiffany L. Watkins of Art Property Management. Hey, Tiffany Watkins, how are you?
I am doing great, and yourself?
Fantastic. Before we get into our conversation, I have to share with everyone, we are both Bison. She is Bison Bread. Ain't you? You know. She and I met several years ago in Chicago through the Howard University Alumni Club of Chicago. Became great friends. Tiffany is not only extremely intelligent, she is someone who is strongly committed to what she starts, which is, of course, exemplified by the fact that she now has a business that she's been in for 25 years. That's right. I said 25 years, and she still looks like a baby. So you can't just get that done. So I really wanted to talk to her. And Tiffany, thank you for joining me here, because, you know, we hear a lot about people who maybe barbershop owners or beauty shop owners, especially in our community, for being people who have longevity. But the work you're doing is different from what we typically hear business owners in our community doing. And not only have you done it, like you were saying right before we started here, which we're going to talk about in a moment, not only is it not a field that we necessarily talk about in the African American community, but it's not necessarily a field that is dominated by women. So for you to not only be in the field, but to be thriving in the field is amazing. So first, congratulations to you for 25 years. Yes.
You.
You're welcome. And before we get into it too deeply, just tell us a little bit about what led you to, and I'll share with you. So she's owner of, I should say, Art Property Management, which she's going to share what Art Property Management actually is. But when you share that, also share with the audience what led you to go into this field and decide that this was an opportunity for you to run a business.
So our property management is a full service real estate brokerage. However, our main focus is managing properties.
Okay.
And what we deal primarily with investors and first-time home buyers.
Okay.
So that's how we got into the sales side of real estate. But what got me into the business, so I came from a corporate background. I graduated from Howard University, as Dawn stated before.
Yes.
And I was working in corporate, whew, and I am truly love my Black people, and it was a struggle for me.
Okay.
With the level of racism that I dealt with, because the organization that I dealt with was very, very racist, to the point where some of the employees would be at the water coolers like, oh yeah, I rolled past that neighborhood. I remember when it was all white. Now the coons then moved in. Statements like, oh, when this young lady was out of work, wasn't at work, that was Latino, didn't come in. Oh, did they ship her back to Mexico? Like blatant
Oh
racism.
my goodness, what?
It was hard. Yeah. So to hear that, and I'm like, I can't do this forever. This is not
Right.
going to work for me. I like accounting, but not to the point.
Especially coming from a Howard. I mean, before I let you go any deep, I mean, I know when I graduated, it was just, there was, and there still is, when we go on the yard, there's a certain energy and there's a certain, I don't know, sense of, I don't want to use the word belonging. Pride, exactly. Sense of pride and cultural understanding of who we are and whose we are that carries us. So not just, having graduated from college, but now you're also a part of this diaspora that is Howard University, and you're coming into that environment. I know that had to be challenging.
It was very challenging. And then when I went to interview for new positions, trying to leave the organization as collectively, I would be on interview with people and they be like, oh, you're wonderful. You meet both of our requirements, Black and a woman. I'm like, oh no, this definitely I was like, Lord, what is it that you have for me? So I was on the train and I was passing all of these buildings and I was like, ooh, I can do property management. And I called two of my high school friends, and one of them also is a Howard alum, to ask them, did they want to get into the business of property management? And my father was in construction and maintenance and, working on other people's properties and rehabbing them and fixing them and adding additions to homes. So I understood the construction side of the business. Okay. So I called Anita and Robin, and that's what Art Property Management stands for. Art stands for Anita, Robin, and Tiffany. So that's how it all started. I am now the sole owner of Art Property Management, but I am forever grateful to Anita and Robin for helping me bring my vision to life, to have them in a partnership to start out. We decided to part ways and I decided to keep the business and grow it into what it is now. But it started with the three of us.
The three of you. So because your dad was in construction, what though was that impetus for you to say, well, let me take his construction knowledge and turn that into property management? Because for those who do not know, so property management, and you help me if I'm wrong, Tiffany, but property management essentially is that leg where somebody may own a building or they may have an apartment complex and they need help in taking in rent, doing some other maintenance for the property, keeping the property up to par, so to speak, in their absence. Is that not correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
So that leg of the business, and that is the leg of the business too, the maintenance part is where the money is really made in property management. People think it's made in collecting the rent. That's just the residual income you get every month. But the maintenance side is where I make the mass majority of my money in real estate. So my father, being in partnership with him, because my father owned his own business as well. So that's where the entrepreneurship spirit came from.
Got it. Okay.
And so I'll tell you why I moved from entrepreneurship into a business owning framework.
Okay.
Later. So with him being in partnership with him, it made it really easy because when something broke in the properties that I was managing for other individuals, I was able to give him a call like, hey, could you give me a bid? Tell me how much this is going to cost. And he would do the work. In addition to that, he also made me learn the trade. So I can hang drywall, put a roof on, sand floors. I know everything about maintenance management that you know how to. I know how to literally do the things. I can troubleshoot a problem when a tenant calls over the phone because I know how to actually physically do construction work. So, and when I was learning his workers, I remember when I was learning how to put a roof on and I was carrying the shingles. Little do people know, shingles are very, very heavy. So I was carrying the shingles up on the ladder. I was like, I only had like 3 shingles. And one of his workers was like, oh, you're going to take forever to do a roof carrying just only 2 shingles. And my dad response to him was, she's not learning how to put on a roof because she's actually going to physically put one on. She's learning so when someone like you comes and put one on, she knows if you're doing it right or not.
All right, Daddy.
And it
Okay.
helps a
Oh,
lot because
yes,
I'll go to
yes,
job sites and I'll be like, why are you doing that like that? And they be like, what? I said,
yes.
like this. I read blueprints, architectural plans. I can do
Nice.
all of that. So it helps with my clients being able to save money as well because most property management companies have all in-house management services, maintenance services, but I outsource mine to my vendors, which also allows people who would typically not be able to get business because all the business in-house, I outsource it and allow other vendors to come in and be able to make money as well.
Okay, very good. So from you working with your dad, you something clicked in you to say, well, this is a business opportunity to now be a manager of properties.
Well, just my dad always stressing owning your own business and working for yourself. I knew I had to do a business. The
Okay.
thing that clicked for me when I was riding past the buildings is I am very, very good with time management. I
Okay.
can manage time very well. And I understood that there was a need in that market, especially within my community, because unfortunately, in inner city communities where there are more brown and black people, they are the least served when it comes to getting quality housing. And I wanted to be able to provide quality housing into communities where people that is what their price point of what they can afford does not mean that they shouldn't live in a quality home.
Okay.
So, because unfortunately in America, it's really not about race, it's about economics.
Right.
Where there's resources, things are nicer and better. But the people that have the least amount of resources in exposure have spend the most amount of money, but they have the least amount of resources in their community. They
Yeah.
don't have quality housing, they don't have quality food, they don't have quality merchandise in their community, but they have a multi-trillion-dollar spending habit.
Yep.
That's
That's
not fair to them.
no, it's not. So it sounds like what happened to you was something similar that happened to me, which is so you're riding down the street, you're seeing these buildings that are not necessarily up to par. You're given an answer from above, right? That says
Mhm.
this is your yes, right? And so
Yes,
you're like, okay, now let me align the pieces so that I can go and give credence to my yes, right? Because
yes,
I always say that God told me to graduate from corporate America. It was just like, and I was like, what? He's like, you've done everything you need to do in this space. It's time to graduate, right? so,
absolutely. That
so
part.
yes, okay, good. So, and I tell people often that when you're talking about going into business or even making your next move in business, it's not always going to be this whole blueprint that's written for years and years, right? Sometimes it's that silent voice that gives you that yes. And then you just have to move in that direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so good. So now, so we know being in business 25 years, there have been moments of difficulty. You don't just arrive at 25 years, you don't just arrive at being able to thrive financially in your business. So help us with how you kind of move through any moments of, and I know there probably are little ones and then there are some, bigger boulders that you have to overcome, but how do you process? You're also an accountant, which means you're a thinker. How do you process through moments of difficulty as you are building and growing your business?
So the first thing is always learning. I
Okay.
don't care how successful you become, you have to continue to learn,
Yep.
continue to go to workshops, continue to get involved in organizations in your industry and helping you to navigate and pivot when time is needed.
Mm-hmm.
However, no matter all the training you get, no matter how much money you tried to save to get to this point in succeeding in your business, that story when people tell you, I hit rock bottom and I didn't know if I was going to make it and how I got from here to here is one. I knew that I needed to have a system. Through all the training that I went through, I had to implement systems that will work and continue to work, whether I'm there in place or not. Two, I have been consistent with implementing the system. I don't waver. When I do something and it works, I stick to it until it evolves into what I needed to evolve to. Because a lot of times people think it's not working. The thing is, it's not working. You just haven't done it long enough. And then I am very faithful. See, God said faith without work gives no outcome. So once I have done all that I can humanly possibly do, I remember the song by Darius Woods, Let Go and Let God.
Woo! I heard
I
that
let
a couple
go.
of weeks ago, and I hadn't heard it in a while. Ooh, that's the song. Go ahead. Carry on.
Yes, I let go and I let God. I have been moments that I have been laying in the bed and someone will call and they say, Tiffany, what you doing? I said, I'm in the bed waiting on God to show up and show out because I've done all that I humanly possibly can do. And I have seen things move that I had no idea of how it would move because I was still long enough to hear God and allow God to do his part because I've done my part. And I have always put him first. And it is because of him I am who I am 25 years later.
Yes, 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 yes. You had just preached a whole sermon. I am getting chills on this Sunday because you have just. Oh my goodness, that's so true. And I'm one of those bed resters too. Even this morning, I put together this new program, and it's just because I took yesterday to just rest. And I think as business owners, the bed and just or wherever that quiet place is for you is a powerful spot because that's where you can think and really allow God to work. Because you're right, sometimes we can be moving, and what you
I
really
wake
need to
up
do
every
is
morning at 5 a.m. Monday through Saturday.
okay.
I get up,
Uh-huh.
I meditate, I
Okay.
pray, and I read my word and ask God
Yes.
to lead my day for me. I don't know
Say
where
that again.
we
You ask God to do what?
lead my day for me.
That's it.
To be on his mission and what
Yeah.
he has for me to do. Because if
Yeah.
I work off my own way, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I think that's what we have lost in this society as a whole, a connection to a higher being and our religious ground and who made us and gave us the foundation and who we are today. And
Right.
that's what guides me. That's what helps me make decisions because I started out with 3 business partners and now I'm the only owner of the business. I don't have anybody but my brain to make decisions. And when
That's
I don't know what is the right decision, I turn to my God.
right.
And we all, I would tell people we all have the same God. We just give him a different name. And when
Right.
I speak to him, he gives me the answers to things I don't know or can't understand. Why is this happening? What am I supposed to do? How am I
Right.
supposed to navigate it? Because the unfortunate part about being at the level that I am at, there's not a lot of people in my community that are doing business in the magnitude in which I do business.
They're
And
not.
hopefully we'll have time for me to talk about that later. It's people that run businesses and been in business for a lot of years and a long
Right.
time, but they don't run business in the platform and the framework in which helps it to grow and become successful.
Yeah. You can
To be
actually
a
have that
business
moment
owner.
now. Share that. Share that piece that you want to talk about that helps you to be successful and how successful you've been with it to the extent that you want to, share.
So in our community, we glorify entrepreneurship.
Right.
And I've never been a person that glorified entrepreneurship because I understand that there's a difference between entrepreneurship and being a business owner.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, you are the person that works the business. When
You're
you
right.
are not there to work the business makes no money. And I'm going to give
Yeah.
you an example. A dentist, a doctor, a hairstylist, they work the business. But
Yep.
in those same industries, they can become business owners and run the business and not have to work the business to make the money.
That's
So
right.
when I started out in business, I worked the business. I always have had an assistant that answered the phones and did the administrative stuff. But as I progressed, I also knew that this was not the place in which I wanted to forever be in. Because when I started the business, in addition to wanting to leave corporate, I wanted to start a family
Mm-hmm.
and be an at-home mom and be able to still generate income. Now, how can you be an at-home mom, generate income, and run a business at the same time? I'm gonna tell those individuals who think they can, you can't unless you own the business and run it as a business and not an entrepreneurship. If you
Right.
run it as an entrepreneurship, you're going to be burned out. You cannot possibly do both because being an entrepreneur is nothing but working a job for yourself. And it is hard
Mm-hmm.
because people think being in business for yourself means you don't have a boss or supervisor, nobody to tell you what to do. Your boss, your supervisor, whatever title you want to give that person is your client.
That's right.
your
That's
consumer, the person that is buying your product or service, that
mm-hmm.
you have to. People think owning your own business, you work when you want to work. That is not so. If you set business hours, people that are your consumer expect you to be there when your business starts.
That's right.
So
Absolutely.
I am deaf on that. When doors supposed to be open at 9, I have somebody in place to answer the phones and open the door at 9.
Right.
When my business, my email address is Tiffany L. Watkins at Art Property MGMT. It is not Tiffany Watkins or Art Property at Yahoo, Gmail, or Hotmail. Setting
Right.
the platform and the foundation from the beginning as a business and not an entrepreneurship has also opened up doors. Because when I went to Home Depot to get my first business credit card in 15 years in the late in the business when I got my first line of credit. 15 years later in the business, I got
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
first line of credit. And when I
Mm-hmm.
went to pull it out, the man said, "Oh, you have a legitimate business. You have your own company web email address." He said, "I don't see that very often. I see people with Yahoo, Gmail, and it was artpropertymgmt.com."
Mm-hmm.
I also reinvest in my business.
Mm-hmm.
Every dollar I make, I also have to reinvest. So I tell my employees, so I do employ people. Let's get this clear. I spend a lot on payroll. I offer health care. I offer 401k and I do a 3% match. I
Mm-hmm.
offer time off for my employees. I offer short term disability, long term disability. I offer them a life insurance policy if they were to pass away and they didn't have one with their own family members. I offer all of those services that my competitors of big corporations offer. And I am in the same community in which I was born and raised in.
Right. Y'all
That
heard
makes
that.
me
Mm-hmm.
proud.
Yes. Yes.
I don't
Y'all
have to
heard
go
what she just
downtown, go into another neighborhood. I provide these same amenities in my community.
said.
When you
Exactly.
call my office, people be really surprised that I'm in West Pullman, Chicago,
Uh-huh.
operating a business. They think I've had people to ask me, "Oh, you work for this company?" Because it's a company. I need to speak to the owner because they can't believe a Black woman is running an establishment at the quality and the level in which I run my business.
Right.
When I'm projecting for my business to grow, like most people, when you're an entrepreneur, you're working in it, you're trying to figure out today. I've always been working in my business, but I've always been thinking about my level, my next move to move out of my business in
Mm-hmm.
order to grow it into a business, to put people in a position and in a place to become me, to sit
Yeah.
in the seat that I'm in. So I have a young lady that I'm mentoring and training to be me. And I tell her the first step in being a effective leader is being a Indian first and being a good Indian. Before I became an entrepreneur, before I even became a business owner, I was an Indian. I worked in corporate America. I watched their systems, their expectations out of me. And those same values that I picked up in corporate America as running a system and running a business, I brought that into my business. Also, being a graduate of Howard University, School of Business,
Right.
they taught me that you have to always be 3 times better than your counterpart
Mm-hmm.
just because of the color of your skin and definitely being a woman. So I
Mm-hmm.
never came in half doing anything. I've always given it, even when I was just a Indian working for someone else, I gave it 101%. So that work ethics, that work um drive I had, I just shifted into my business because
Right.
there's no one there to wake you up in the morning. There's no one to tell you to meet your deadlines. Because if you don't get up and be where you're supposed to be, meet your deadlines for your clients, they just find someone else that can do what you do. Because
That's right.
every industry, there's someone there that's better than you, equal to you, or less than you. And your question is, how do you stand out from the rest? Being the best you can be in that business. And so I tell my protege, I say, listen, my gift in this business, my clients call me the fixer. I fix problems. I am the person that if you come to me with a distressed property, I can make it profitable. And in turn, I had told her, you have to find your niche that brings in business. People come to me. I have been in business for 25 years. I have not marketed. I do some posts every now and again on social media or something random, but like true full-fledged marketing, running campaigns and advertisement. I have not done any of that. My business has grown organically via word of mouth. And if God is willing, in 2025, at the end of the year, my revenue stream will be at 7 figures. And I am grateful that I'm able to provide jobs for people in my community that would not have been employed because of their criminal background, because they like to have locks in their hair, or
Right.
because they're too dark, or because they're a woman, or because of whatever reason somebody feels that they're not good enough to be working for them. I can give those people opportunities.
That's
So,
right. And I'm gonna pause right there because you said a lot. You said a lot, and I want to make sure that everybody who's watching gets some of the nuggets that you shared that I think are like uber valuable when you're talking about running, building, growing a business. Number one, what I heard you say is you're still in your own community. You didn't leave the community. You are bringing economic streams right there where you live. That's so important. You don't have to do that if some people want to go outside once they've started making money. But I love that you said, you chosen to build the economic engine right there where you live. The other thing is, you know what, guys, you have to be consistent. You can post, which Tiffany and I talked about a little bit offline. It's so much bigger than social media. I mean, when you're talking about those little posts, that is not what is going to drive and sustain your business. What has sustained her business is consistency. She says she's grown it organically, and that has allowed her to, I hope you didn't miss this, hopefully by the end of this year, she's going to have a 7-figure revenue stream business. A 7-figure revenue stream business. Not by, and again, there's nothing wrong with posting. I post, you getting your business out there. There's nothing wrong with that. When she started the business, there was no social media and all of that. So the only way it was going to grow is by really delivering on the promise. And then that other piece that I love is, it's when you say you're going to be somewhere, you must be there. And if you're a business owner, you don't have to be the person showing up, but you got to make sure that the person who you have in charge to show up shows up. So when they walk in, they're not necessarily looking for Tiffany Watkins. They're looking for Art Property Management to be in place. And so if whomever she has assigned to that role does not show up, then what do they say? Our property management is raggedy, right? And we never want that. So talk a little bit too, Tiffany, about when you made the decision. I know at first you had your partners, then you kind of went by yourself for a little while, and then you decided to bring people on, and now you even have, you're offering insurance, you're offering benefits to your employees. At what year was that in your business, and what told you that now is the time for me to start adding to my my staff?
So I've always had, even when it was the three of us, we always had one employee because when we first started, we always worked a couple of jobs.
Right.
However, we just paid a salary to them. We paid them hourly wages, rather.
Okay, gotcha.
So in 2017, I knew I was ready to grow. It was starting to pick up. I wasn't struggling. And I was like, in what I was doing, I knew that in order for me to grow, I had to put additional people in place. See, the thing that we make the mistake of is we think that we're supposed to put the people in place when we have grown. You have to make a sacrifice. This is part when I talk about sacrificing. I had to cut back on my expenses personally to be able to afford to bring a part-time person in that I can train and cross-train to be able to do the job, because in 2021, I got sick. This is when I knew I needed more than just me and an extra person.
Right.
I had always knew it in my head, but when it actually happened, I was like, I can never be in this situation again. I went into the hospital for 3 days. One day for in and outpatient surgery, ended up being in the hospital for 3 days and bed rest for 30 days.
Wow.
But because my system was in place.
Yes.
And the day before I got ready to go to the hospital, my assistant that I always had, that one assistant, quit that part. So I didn't have anybody to work.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
oh my God. I broke down. I was crying. Because I'm like, oh my God, what happened
No,
if I go
but
to
y'all who say you want a business, this is the kind of stuff that shows up. And there's no warning and there's no blueprint. You just got to roll with it. So
I'm like, Lord, I'm about to go into surgery tomorrow. I don't even know if this surgery gonna go as planned. What happened? I know for certain I'm gonna be off 3 days and ended up being off 30 days. So God is good. When I tell you he shows up and shows out. My sister,
okay.
who had worked for me as an assistant before, they closed her position, and because they told her she can take this position, try to find another one in the organization, or move out of state to keep the position. And she was like, I'm not moving. And she could never find anything that she wanted to do in the organization. So she said, I'll come and help you.
Okay.
So my sister came in and assisted me. But my sister she worked for me before, so she understood the process and the system. Yep. And I had a new system I put in that she had been familiar with. I talked to her about, and she was able to come in. And my sister, and I am thankful to her, and I don't know if she understands how thankful I am, but in the year that she was with me, she took my system that I had and pushed it to the next level of making me totally automative.
Wow.
So,
Serena, hey, girl. Hey, if you watching. That is fantastic.
When my sister came in place, I knew she was only going to be there temporarily.
Okay.
And I had been interviewing people to even replace my assistant. Right. I was always knew that I wanted to bring in in 2017, when I told you all I was growing, I had a full-time and a part-time person. Okay. But I'm dealing with young people, young talent, because more seasoned talent, one, wanted more money, and two, they think they smarter than you and they never did what you did. Okay. So I'm just like, I can get somebody new, young, vibrant. I can train them, teach them how to do the business. And so they came in, but they I'm sorry, no offense to the Gen Zs and the millennials, but they commitment is just a little different than us Gen X's, okay? So I went through a lot of millennials and Gen Zs before I have my millennial in place. So once my sister came, I knew I was bringing somebody in. They were cross-training. The person that I was bringing in was on the sales side. Okay. And she kept telling me she wanted to come work for me on the management side. She wanted to come work for the management side, but she wasn't ready. I was like, right. I need somebody that's going to be solid, because this lady walked out on me right before I went to the hospital. And if it wasn't for my sister, and my sister has her own business that she was trying to grow and build while she's trying to navigate and help me with mine. Right. So I hired the young lady off the sales side, who is now my protege, who is working out wonderfully. But I knew that she cannot be my only person. Okay. And I kept looking. I needed a bilingual person, because by this time, now we're in 2022 now, everybody, Chicago done got all of these Spanish-speaking people. I got people calling, speaking Spanish, and I cannot speak a lick of it. Used to, but I can't anymore. Right. So I went to a conference, a real estate property management conference. I go to it every other year. And they were talking about having a virtual assistant. So again, this is me pivoting. I couldn't hire anybody. I have a person that's helping me, but I need somebody to answer the phones, to do things. Right. So in turn, I found this company that they have been raving about, and I hired me a virtual assistant that answers my phone, and she's in Mexico. Okay. She speaks Spanish. Okay. Now I have 2 people full-time. So then I turned around and I hired another part-time person, because I still need more help, because I'm planning to grow, because I am planning to franchise my business and move into another region. That's a whole other story. Talk about that if we got time. Okay. So I hired a part-time person that is now, and when I hired her, I was training her, getting her ready to help out. And one of my clients, who has a huge portfolio, called me. And I only had like 1/3 of his portfolio, and said, Tiffany, I would like you to take on the other 2/3 of the property that I will manage. He still has another 1/3 so I have like 75% of his portfolio, because 25% I won't eat.
Okay, got it.
And he said, I want you to take this on. He said, can you handle it? I was already prepared with my part-time person, cross-training her to bring her on board.
See? That's good.
in advance. Now, mind you, I'm spending a lot of money, but I wasn't making enough. I was
Yeah.
rubbing pennies together, making a whole dollar, making
Right.
it work. But she was
Right.
already in place. So as I'm bringing on these new properties, now I have all the right people in place. And I
Okay.
am in the process of hiring another person because I'm leaving the day-to-day operations completely, but I need to have enough people in place for when my protege is out and the other people in place are not there. There's somebody that can always do what I used to do everything of.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And so I love that you said you kind of planned, you put some people in place before you actually needed them. So then when the opportunity
Mhm.
was there, you were already kind of positioned for that, which is excellent. That's yeah, that's food for me as well. So let me ask you a couple of questions because we could talk forever. We're already at 38 minutes. Oh my goodness. So I just got a couple other questions that I want to hit on before we wrap up. The first one is I know you have a full service brokerage. And if you could share a little bit with everybody about what that means. And then secondly, as a woman owned business in a predominantly male field, how do you handle working with men? And do you ever experience any moments of sexual harassment or anything negative as a woman? And if so, how do you handle it?
So the full service brokerages, a lot of property management companies only deal with property management.
Okay.
Well, we deal with sale of real estate. And so I got in that business because I was managing someone property. And it was like, Tiffany, why am I looking for a broker to sell me another property? I'm ready to sell something, buy something. Can't
Right.
you do that? Because in the state of Illinois, you are required to have a real estate license in order to manage anyone else's properties.
Interesting.
Yes,
Okay.
most people don't know that. So I was like, yeah, I have a license. They was like, okay, well, I found this property. Can you help me with it? And I did.
Okay.
So then my clients like, I want to sell my property. I say, I'll help you. I can sell it when they're ready to sell it because I know it in and out. Like
Right.
I have buildings, 18 units, 6 units, 12 units, and I can come knock on every door. When I knock, they open and let me in with no pushback because I have a
Okay.
relationship and a rapport with them. I
Right.
can educate them on what happens and what it looks like for your owner to sell. It doesn't affect your living.
Right.
Now, I tell my clients want me to sell their properties as well. And I tell them they hire someone else to sell it for them. That's wonderful, but I will not be getting up showing it because
Okay.
that's what your broker is supposed to do. So we have
Right.
a sales side. Then we also have a project management entity. People buy distressed properties because they like when you buy them distressed, you make more money off of it.
Right.
However, you're busy because you have your corporate job or your whatever job you work in. You don't have
Right.
time to be following on contractors around, getting estimates and all of that. I am a project, my services, my business offers project management services where I am acting on behalf of the owner, monitoring and delegating and hiring the GCs to run different projects of rehab from start to finish.
Okay.
That's what I do. So that's what a full service real estate brokerage looks like. I'm also working on adding a component and bringing investors together to buy because I tell my investors all the time the sum of two parts is always better than each individual part. And a lot of my investors are small investors who have one or two properties, but they want to get into bigger portfolios. So they don't know how to do that and how they can pool together as a network and build and buy more.
Okay. So we do property management. We help sell. We help to refurbish distressed properties. All of that.
Yeah.
And so with that, of course, for those who are listening and watching, this is a field. I think we would all agree that is pretty heavily male dominated. So tell us about any challenges that you've had, particularly as it relates to either not being respected as a woman or in terms of being harassed sexually as a woman, if that's happened to you, anything that you've had, and then how you've been able to overcome that.
So in real estate, most people think that it's a woman dominated industry. And if you're in the sales side on the leasing or the houses for individuals to buy, it is women. But when you
Oh,
start talking
really?
about
See, I would have thought it would be male. I didn't think it was a woman-owned, woman
it's a
dominated.
lot of women in that side of the business. When you
You
started
mean,
talking
okay, real estate, showing properties, that
properties,
kind of
right?
stuff. Yes.
And right,
Okay. Got you. Yeah. Yeah.
so when
Yeah.
you
Okay.
start talking about buying, I mean, you start talking about developing, building, renovating, construction, um, owning brokerages, like
Right.
it's male dominated, and
Yes.
they I be educating. I be like,
Okay.
listen, because I'm a woman, let me explain, let me let you know how good I am as a woman. And I
Right.
walk into the room and I'm the only woman sitting at the table
Right.
that knows the industry. And it's challenging. So I navigated to let them know that I am smart as they are, or even smarter, because I had to tell one of the brokers that came in the office, he made a little statement about my VA being the smart one of the bunch. And I stepped down. I said, excuse me, I'm smarter than all of you all. Just so you know this. And
Okay.
just have to get them together. Like, we're not about to do this today.
Right. Right.
Sexual harassment, I experience it. And this is, and I'm glad that you asked about that, because even though I'm in a male dominated industry, I experience it a lot more. Maybe if I probably wasn't in a male dominated industry.
Right.
However, as a business owner, there's no HR. You are HR.
Right.
So when
Exactly.
someone calls you, they call me sweetie. One of my vendors came in and was like, how you doing today? Good looking. Now, that is so inappropriate. And I don't like it. Some people, if it becomes excessive, I have to bring in a male counterpart, maybe my brother, the person I'm dating at that time, another vendor, to express to them how that is inappropriate. And that makes me uncomfortable. For my employees, I'm the one that has to tell them. I had a vendor to come in. Don't ask me why. Walk up to my assistant and rub her on her shoulders. And she was like, don't touch me. I said, what? And I was in my office. I said, what happened? She was like, he rubbed me on my shoulder. I said, why would you do that? That is sexual harassment. You don't even know her. How dare you do that to her? But that also was a teachable moment for my assistant, because I clearly, when she first started, she's younger, so she wears tight fitted clothes, belly tops, and I said, you can't come to work like that. I said, you have to dress for the environment of the people that you're working with. 98% of the people that we deal with in this industry are men. And they, for whatever reason, will do some crazy stuff, even ones that you have had relationships with. Because the one that called me good looking, he been my vendor for like 15 years. Because he didn't get comfortable. So I have to remind them, I'm not their mother, I'm not their sister, I'm not their girlfriend. I'm the person that writes your checks. And I need you to respect me accordingly. Because I'm a woman, that does not give you the right to call me good looking, sweetheart, baby. Because how would you like me to call you girl or honey child? And because they very masculine. So they get real offended, because some of them don't even want, they be like, I'm not going over there because he like me. I be like, why are you? I said, do you like him? That doesn't happen. What if you don't go over there and fix that problem? So
Right.
I have to like really navigate those issues regarding sexuality and sex and harassment as the owner, and you have to deal with it. You cannot have someone harassing you or your employee and not address it, because you will go out of business.
Yeah, and as a leadership development expert, this is my wheelhouse. So I'm glad you even said that. And particularly when we train interviewing, we tell our leaders that you cannot, and not to regionalize it, but I'm here in Nashville, and so I had to train a group of leaders where sweetie, honey child, these are language options that they use regularly. And so, yeah, to your point, I had to let them know you cannot use those words when you're talking to potential candidates, and you need to liken it to, if you're the CEO of that particular company was a woman, and I said you wouldn't go down and say to her, hey honey child, hey babe, even if you're thinking that you may know her in a more friendly way. That's just not the way to do it. And the other point that you just raised is about the dress. Yes, people have to be mindful of how they dress. No one, however, has the right to take how you dress, how you wear your hair, how you wear whatever as an opportunity to think that you are an object of their unwanted affections, intended
Mm-hmm.
or not. So yes, I'm glad that you handled that in the way that it needed to be handled, because sometimes, and sometimes people take it in and then they don't say stop. And they're feeling offended, and next thing you know, either you lose an employee, they're writing, and for my other business owners, employees can go and now they're filing a claim against you because you've allowed that in your organization. So yes, you were absolutely right. And sometimes I bet people don't even believe you're the owner. They're like, well, where is the owner of? I know. Can I speak to the owner, please?
I get that a lot.
I'm sure. Sometimes you can just play it off.
Like, we should get back with Willow to talk to you.
Exactly. That is the truth. Yes, yes. Okay, so let me, I just got a couple of final questions. What advice do you have for any new and aspiring entrepreneurs, for anybody who's trying to get started, thinking about it, no matter what the field is? What advice would you have for how they can start and succeed in business?
Go in understanding that it's a lot of work. Yeah. Don't go in with the misconception that it's easy, because it's not. I promise you, there later now, 25 years in, some days I wake up like, girl, I need to quit and go work for somebody. Because as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you don't get to turn off. Nope. You do not have a 9-to-5 job. You have a 24/7. So whatever your work hours are, those hours are utilized to assist your customer, your client, your whoever you're servicing. After hours is the time for you to build, grow, plan, strategize, or whatever it is you need to get done that you couldn't get done because you had customers calling, coming in, and needing assistance. Because for some reason, in entrepreneur-minded new entrepreneurs, they think that I'm off when I'm off. You're never off. I work 24/7. Even when I'm on vacation, I'm working. I can say now that I've graduated to the point, because I am in the business quadrant of the business of my business. I can go. I went on vacation last week to DC, and when I was there, I looked at the phone, something popped up, because I can run my whole office from my cell phone. I looked and saw something, and I said, oh, they got it. I can say that now.
I'm glad, because we went to California last year, and she does have business people working for her. But I understand it, because once you're in it and this is your baby, she still was on the phone in her office. It was like something was going on. I don't know if it was a rain or something had happened in Chicago.
When I remember we lost internet, there was the
internet. Okay, that's right.
I had to shut the whole office down. I had to tell them how to pivot and fix problems. Because they're going to come to you about everything. You are the HR, the human, you are the technology person. Even though I have an IT person, when it go down, I'm like, why you didn't call Adish?
Right.
They call him, but certain things, Adish is in India. So certain things, he only can fix the stuff that's in the background, that's on the system. Okay. He cannot fix the computers that break down in the office. But all of my technology in my office is Apple. So I'll try to troubleshoot myself. And then I have to get on the phone with Apple and sit there and talk to them, because I haven't grown to the point that I can hire an IT department. Yes. So I am IT. I'm not at that part where I can hire HR. I do have an HR consultant that I pay to come in and help me interview. I have any questions. And that's the number one thing that also, as an entrepreneur, you need to understand. Hire people to do the things that you are not a specialist in, that you don't have time to do, that is going to take away from you doing the things that make you money. Anybody will tell you, I will pay for the people that are experts or professionals in that area, because my area of expertise and professionalism is in managing, dealing with real estate. I don't have time to be focused. I have an accountant. I have a payroll company. I don't do any of that. And I am an accountant. Yes, I have somebody that does my tax. I have somebody to do my payroll. So when the IRS call, and the IRS does call, and they come knocking too, because I've had them to come knocking on my door about things. And when they do come, I just call my payroll company, or I call my accountant and say, they're asking for this. Can you give them what they need? Because I have something else I need to deal with. I have a healthcare specialist who finds my healthcare insurance. I have a 401 company that does my 401k, that manages our 401k. I do not have time to do all of that when I'm trying to grow a business.
Exactly.
Invest. And so, yes, you might make I make 6 digits. of all of the 6 digits that I make, even when I go into 7 digits, I'm still going to spend 6 digits in paying for the people to do the things that help me to be better.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, I am only as strong as my team is. And I
Mm-hmm.
built a strong team to get me to where I'm trying to go to. And
Right.
I have never felt that I was accomplished until 2024. I finally felt like I'm doing it. And
Wow.
I still
4
don't
years
feel that
in.
I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
So never get comfortable. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable
Uncomfortable. I just told
as an
somebody the other
entrepreneur.
day. Yes, that is so
Walking
true.
into spaces that you're the only person, learning from the people who are great in that industry
That's
is
right.
uncomfortable for you. But
That's
go
right.
into that space so you can become the person that's in that room that's making the game changer and being the person that makes changes in the industry that you love so much.
Exactly. That's right. And I want to tell people too. So Tiffany has shared a lot about how she has added to the business and how she has brought in people to help support her. I'm a newbie compared to her, only 5 years in. I will say this. Yes, understand it is not easy. It is hard. We are working right now on what would be non-business hours having this conversation. But also know you don't have to do it all today. Right. As she
Mhm.
has grown, as she has seen that these are different areas that she needed support in, she was able to pivot the way she needed to and add those layers. Sometimes I've seen business owners quit because they think the mountain is too high to climb.
Mhm.
All you have to do is take one step on each level, really,
Mhm.
to get to each level, and eventually you will get to the mountaintop. But do not think that because you hear her saying all this today that, oh, I got to have all these people, I got to have an accountant, I got to have an HR person, I got to have an assistant, I got to have. Now I've always had not always, but pretty soon in my business I realized I needed assistant help, not just because of the taking the weight off from a tactical standpoint, but also in terms of, like you say, making your business look more, I don't want to say professional, but that's the only word that's coming to my mind right now. In terms of making the business look more professional, and also sometimes it takes the weight off of me as a business owner when there's someone else who can answer some of those questions. You know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
it's like, so yeah, I definitely think if I was talking to a new business owner, I would say one of your first steps, and maybe it's something else for you, but having that assistant, having that second person to be able um, to be your defense sometimes and your offense even sometimes is a beautiful thing.
Yes. So and when I say, like, I was an accountant, so I'm in the beginning of my business, I did my own taxes. But as
Right,
the business began to
exactly.
grow, I ain't had time to do no taxes
That's
now because
right,
it's growing.
exactly.
So right, I
Right.
did that on my own. Like I developed my first website myself. But as the bit 20 years in, I was like, okay, I need to polish this up and make it look more professional. And that is
Exactly.
just reinvesting in your business. But in the
That's
beginning,
right.
everything that you can do yourself, do
Right.
it yourself to save your money, and do not go in debt. For 15 years, I paid out of my own pocket to
Yeah,
grow the business into where I got it to today. It
that's
wasn't
right.
until I made enough money to pay for the debt that I was getting to ensure that there was enough income coming in to cover that debt.
Right.
And I wasn't using the income, the debt that I've obtained is good debt. I use it
Right.
and I put it back into the business. It's
Right.
not for me
Right.
to go for shopping and kicking it and partying. It's for me to build and grow the business. That's what I use
Exactly.
it for.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. That's so true. All right. Last question. We're Howard graduates. And so thinking about your alma mater and how it prepared you for the journey. I'm going to give you a quick example for me. Like I just told my son the other day, he and his business partner were out, and the people who they were supposed to meet with hadn't done what they were supposed to do. And I remembered that when we were graduating, I think her name was Miss Green, said, you know what, when you're trying to get all your clearances together, if you didn't do it, it didn't get done. And that kind of stuck with me and stays with me even right now. So as you're thinking about, if you could pull something from your Howard journey that really sustains you and sticks with you in life, and as you're growing and building your business, what would that be for you?
One, showing up on time means you already late. Some
Oh,
professors will be like, 9 o'clock doors closed. You need to be in the seat at 9 o'clock.
that's true.
That's the first one.
That's true. Yes, yes. Yes, yes.
2, you did not come here to play.
Yep. That's it.
Put your best foot forward
Yep.
because people are already expecting you to fail because you're Black.
Yep.
Be the best version of you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In the level of professionalism, that business 101 that we had to take,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
business orientation,
Mm-hmm.
that's the foundation of
Mm-hmm.
how to be professional.
Yep. Yep.
When I say my level of professionalism, when you look at my organization as a whole, it came from that foundation of Howard telling me to present myself in the manner in which I want people to respect me at.
That's it. Yep. That's it. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, Tiffany L. Watkins, yes, business owner of Art Property Management, and most importantly, my friend, thank you so much for sharing your story today, inspiring people to even be better today than they were yesterday. I always appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you next month when we're going to have some fun when I come to Chicago.
And I'm thankful for your platform to be able to share my story. And I appreciate you for giving me that opportunity to share it, because I'm so busy doing the work.
Yeah.
I don't recognize how impactful the work that I do can help people in my community to be a better them.
Yes.
And that's before we close, I want to tell people my greatest reward and joy about owning Art Property Management is being able to provide jobs for people in my community. Because even if I decided not to do this ever again, I have a career that I am going to always be employed. I'm an accountant by profession.
Right.
And I have an MBA and a master's in counseling. I'm a licensed counselor in addition to that. So I have 2 careers that no matter what happens in this world, I will be employable.
Yep.
And to be able to take my time and to grow a business to provide jobs for people in my community brings me joy.
Yeah.
That's where my joy comes. Because I make enough money now that if Tiffany Watkins didn't want to do nothing else and didn't want to grow this business anymore, I will be okay.
Right.
But then how will people that are in my community, will they be okay? And in the times that we're in now, we have to build our communities no matter what race we are, because we are against the rich versus the poor. It is not about color, it's about economics. And how do we, as the ones who are stuck in this middle class platform, shift and ensure that the gap of poverty is lessened and not widened?
Shrinks. That's right. Exactly.
How do we shrink them? By being able to provide jobs for people who are no longer going to have those opportunities because of the obstacles that our government is putting in place to keep them from advancing. So I'm glad that I made the table for me to sit at. I don't need a DEI because I am DEI.
Woo, Jesus, girl, don't make me run around. Don't make me run. Don't.
And I want us to continue, whether it be Black, white,
make your
own table.
I was talking to a gentleman, and we are going to close, y'all, but you know we can go fast. I was talking to a gentleman in Florida the other day, and he was so nervous because of all of these DEI initiatives, and I felt bad for him when I hung up. I said, man, it's sad to think that your livelihood is dependent on somebody you don't even know. When you can look in the mirror, and like you say, it's not easy, but it's always worth it. I know if there's a layoff happening at the World Class Training Institute, guess who's gonna know first? If there's a layoff happening at Art Property Management, guess who's gonna know first? Exactly. And there's beauty and joy in that. Yes.
But we also, and I need to end. I know you gotta go.
Yeah.
It's okay to work for someone.
It is.
Work for someone that values you for who you and the skills that you bring to their organization. That's right. Whether DEI is in place. There's jobs that people that DEI are helping to have that are overqualified for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of their color, their skin, their sexual preference, or sexuality, that they're being denied these jobs that they should have. But if we make jobs in our own community, that doesn't matter. Keep your program, because I'm going to have a job for my person that looks like me, act like me, think like me, and move like me to have. Because everybody cannot be a chief. Because we need the Indians to fight the war.
Woo! Girl, why are you preaching? Why are you preaching?
Well, that's my gift.
It is your gift. It is your gift. And you're absolutely right about that. Everybody does not have to be an entrepreneur, but definitely you want to be with people who value you and the work that you do. Absolutely. Yes. So cheers to 25 years, my friend. I'm so proud of you. Very proud of you. Stay right there. I'm gonna close out and then we'll wrap up. Okay. Stay right there. I'm gonna take you in the background. All right. All right, everybody. That was an amazing conversation. Oh my goodness, Tiffany is so amazing. Make sure that you, even if you're in Chicago and you need property management services, art property management, she said that she's in West Pullman area of Chicago. Make sure to look her up, to use her services. And then, of course, for World Class Training Institute, go to worldclasstraining.net for all of our leadership programs, and pick up our book, Unpacking Agape, The 7 Languages of Intentional Leadership, at worldclasstraining.net/agape. And finally, until next time, always remember, at the World Class Training Institute, when you are better, we are absolutely better. Take care.